Hello there, everybody. My name is Ashley Hunt, Senior Project Management Instructor, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about facilitating retrospectives. For a lot of us, a retrospective and or lessons learned meeting is one of those situations where we have the opportunity as a team to work together and to try and figure out how things went, what we're going to focus on going forward, and what kinds of improvements we're actually going to make. So this video is all about just an overview of retrospectives. So the whole concept of a retrospective is to look back. Now, if it's an agile type of project, chances are you worked in an iteration length of maybe 2 weeks to a month. So the retrospective would happen at the end of that iteration, and we'd be able to look back at that iteration or possibly ones before that and try and figure out what went well, what did not go so well. What empirical knowledge have we learned? And as we go forward, what types of improvements are we going to make? And the power of a retrospective is the ability to be able to plan and implement right away. Unfortunately, in predictive projects, a lot of times the lessons learned meeting is too late. It happens at the end of a 7-month project and you're like, oh yeah, that hurt, and oh, we learned that. And you take it with you into the next project. The beauty of a retrospective, which you can do in a predictive project, schedule one every single month and say, all right, we're going to do a lessons learned meeting every single month and we're going to talk about what went well, what didn't go so well. We're going to start looking at improvements, continuous improvement. What can we change? What can we do better the next time? Specifically, retrospectives typically are time boxed, which means like an iteration is 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. You have a retrospective. Usually it's about an hour to 2 hours. A lot of agile project managers find it difficult to do like a 4-hour retrospective, especially if they're only running in 2-week increments. So what should we stop doing? What should we start doing? What should we keep doing? And that could be project work, or how do we improve our retrospectives so that we can focus much more on continuous improvement? And the team will discuss this openly and then reach consensus on a plan for immediate implementation. The key to this as a facilitator, so let's say you're a project manager, you're a scrum master, you're an agile coach, whatever that is to make sure that one, the team keeps it in the time box, so you don't go over the scheduled allotted amount of time, but also to make sure that your team is transparent in their communication. This is supposed to be an area of communication without any external influences, sponsors, bosses, customers, anything like that, where the team can get together and really focus on the team. And how can we do this? For the very first retrospective, very first one that you do, have an agenda like you would a lessons learned meeting. Just so one, if you're the facilitator, you can keep track of the timeframes that you want to spend on certain topics. And it also gives your team an idea as to what it is that you're going to be discussing. And that helps pave the way for open or more open communications and lead the discussion with open-ended questions. Nothing in that can be answered yes or no. Something that has to have discussion around it. So, do you think we did a good job in this last iteration? That's a yes or no question. How can we improve upon the last iteration in continuous improvement going into the next iteration? Well, now we're having a discussion. A couple different ways to figure out maybe what went sideways or what worked and what did not work is to have individual conversations as a team about what do we agree on, what don't we agree on. Sometimes triple nickels, where you can identify 5 issues in 5 minutes and do it 5 times in a row, allows the team to really communicate and be like, yeah, that was something. It may not be something that we can change, but at least we've identified it. We've vented. How about our timelines? What does our timeline look like? Because a lot of, no matter what projects, people are like, how long is this going to take? And you're looking at it going, well, based on our current capacity and productivity, which we can improve going forward, that could streamline our schedule. Other ways to figure out root cause, you can use an Ishikawa diagram or root cause analysis. And essentially what you're doing is working backwards through a problem. You can say, all right, here's what we've identified on the project as a problem. Let's say it's low customer satisfaction, or our customer isn't happy with the increment or something like that. Well, why? Is it because the pricing's too high for what they think they're getting? Maybe the marketing was ineffective, or we're passing on the cost because our materials are too expensive. Is it because we have a low quality product? Maybe poor materials, bad design. Is it poor support, poor customer support? Are they getting wrong answers? Are they getting long hold times where they're listening to horrific elevator music? Or maybe we're just not paying our people enough to care, to interact. The goal of a fishbone diagram is to start with the big categories of what it could be and then drill down. There might be multiple root causes, but we have to focus on the ones that we can actually go forward and implement a fix, or at least a step-by-step improvement. One of the ways that you can also get to the root cause of an issue, and it's an issue or a risk or a problem, is to use the 5 whys. That was created at Toyota as a brainstorming type of session that if you ask why 5 times in a row, then you're going to get to the root cause. Plus you get to act like a 2-year-old. Why? Why is the sky blue? Why? And that gets you to that point. You can use this with risk or just something that maybe went a little bit sideways during your last iteration, phase, or project. And then when the team says, okay, this is what we want to do, this is the improvement that we want going forward, we have to make sure that we're setting the right goals. And maybe you've heard of this. Pretty much every single manager I've ever talked to has been through SMART training, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So you might be like rolling your eyes, like, oh, we're talking about this again. But one of the ways to do this and keep this in mind is to really think about New Year's resolutions. And I don't know about you, maybe you keep New Year's resolutions or you don't make New Year's resolutions, but like 80% of people do not keep their New Year's resolutions. And the reason why is because they're non-specific, you can't measure them, they might not even be attainable or relevant, and you might not have a time structure around it. So instead of saying, I want to make more money, I want to travel more, I want to lose weight, those are unattainable goals because they're too vague and obtuse. So what we don't want to do in a retrospective is say, going forward, we want to do a better job. Okay, what does that mean? So it's a good practice to say specifically, let's break it down and figure out what we can do, how we can measure it. Is this even something that we can change? Oh, it's regulation? No, we can't change that. Let's focus on something else. And is it relevant to the team and what it is that we're trying to accomplish? And how quickly do we think we can implement that? Is it going to take one iteration, one phase? Is it going to take the rest of the project, but we're continuously improving and working toward it? Then those are going to be really good conversations to have in a retrospective or in a lessons learned meeting. The goal of any retrospective or lessons learned meeting is to identify what we did really well, what we didn't do so well, and what we can implement as a change. And if we can make those decisions and then implement them in a smart way, based on the root cause, then chances are you will improve your output, your capacity, your productivity, your quality, and even still, you'll be able to improve the quality of your retrospectives or your lessons learned. It allows us to reflect. And if you're closing out a retrospective, we want to make sure that those plans are set going forward. We've gained that valuable feedback. We figured out what steps to take next. Maybe the team will check themselves and be like, oh, how do we work together as a team? Are we high performing? Are there things that we can do as a team to be more open in our communication or work together a little bit more effectively? That's why I like to close out a retrospective with team appreciations and specifically what people did really well. Not, hey, great job, but specific positive feedback for each one of the team members and encourage them to do the same for their team. Help, hindered, hypothesis. What helped us on this project? What hindered us? And what hypothesis can we reach from that in order to really solidify our plans for moving forward? And plus or delta. Do more of this, do less of that. And that could be on the team level, do more of this, do less of that in a retrospective, or even on the iteration and or project level. So in essence, those are just some overview ideas that you can pull into your next retrospective, even if you're in a predictive project. Having those checkpoints along the way to have discussions and make determinations about continuous improvement is not only good for you and your team, it's really, really good for your project, your product, your service, and your organization. So if you've never done a retrospective before, try it out. They really, really work.